In a city where shadows hide the darkest secrets, the murder of Daniel Serafini shocked everyone who thought they knew him. What began as a simple homicide soon spiraled into a tangled web of family betrayal, hidden agendas, and deadly lies. Crime documentary dives deep into this chilling case, uncovering how blood ties that bind can also suffocate. Daniel's murder wasn't just about violence. It was about secrets so twisted that the truth threatened to destroy everyone involved. This story will reveal how trust can shatter, and how far people will go to protect their darkest sins. In the dark underbelly of a city that never sleeps, where every street corner hides a secret and every shadow tells a story, there lived a man named Daniel Serafini, a man whose life was as complex and twisted as the alleys he walked through every day. Daniel was not an ordinary man to the outside world. He seemed successful, confident, and untouchable. But beneath his calm exterior lay a world of danger, deception, and betrayal, the kind that could destroy a man if he let his guard down, even for a moment. Crime documentary brings you this chilling tale of a murder that shook the city to its core and revealed secrets that no one wanted to see or believe. It all began on a cold, rainy night, when Daniel was found lifeless in an abandoned warehouse far from the bustling city center. The police who arrived at the scene were met with a grim sight. The body was sprawled across the grimy floor, blood pooling beneath it, a silent testimony to the violence that had unfolded here. The initial assumption was that it was a robbery gone wrong, or perhaps a dispute between criminals, but as the investigation unfolded, it became painfully clear that this was no ordinary crime. Daniel was a man with a past and a present filled with enemies and allies, whose loyalty was as questionable as the darkness surrounding this crime scene. The officers began to dig deeper, asking questions that led them down a rabbit hole of family secrets and criminal dealings that no one had imagined. Daniel was not just a victim, he was a key player in a dangerous game, played by those who wore the masks of family and friendship. His connections ran deep and tangled through the city's underworld, and even his closest relations were not immune to suspicion. Every detail mattered. Every whisper, every look that did not match the words spoken, became a clue in the complex puzzle. The detectives working the case started to notice patterns, a series of coded messages, a hidden ledger, a trail of money that led to unexpected places. They found that Daniel had been keeping secrets that could topple powerful figures, people who preferred the shadows to the light and who were willing to kill to protect their interests. This was not a crime of passion or impulse, but a carefully orchestrated act meant to send a message and ensure silence. The more the police uncovered, the more dangerous their task became. The crime syndicate Daniel was linked to was ruthless and unforgiving. They operated with precision and a cold, calculated brutality that kept even the most hardened criminals in line and fearful. For Daniel to have dared to stand against them, to plot a way out or expose them, was to sign his own death warrant. But who among those close to him was willing to pull the trigger? The investigation revealed that Daniel had been living a double life. His days were spent in the light, running legitimate businesses, while his nights were consumed by secret meetings and covert communications with people from the darkest corners of the city. These were not just simple deals. They were part of a bigger plan to bring down a criminal empire and to protect those who could not protect themselves. But secrets in a world like this never stay hidden for long, and trust is a currency far more valuable and fragile than money. Daniel knew this, yet he kept moving forward, unaware that the people he considered family might be the very ones plotting against him. The police began to focus on the Serafini family itself, a family known for its wealth, influence, and a reputation that commanded respect and fear in equal measure. The family gatherings were far from the warm and loving scenes one might expect. Instead, they were filled with tension, old grudges, whispered threats, and alliances as shifting as the city's skyline. Each member seemed to have something to hide and a motive to kill. The detectives uncovered disputes over inheritance control, over business empires, and old wounds that had never healed. The more they learned, the more it became evident that Daniel was a threat to many, and that his murder was not just about silencing one man but about preserving a fragile balance of power that had been maintained through lies and bloodshed. The night of the murder was reconstructed piece by piece from surveillance footage, witness statements, and forensic evidence. Daniel had attended a family dinner earlier that evening, a tense affair where voices were low but eyes were sharp. The argument that erupted after was said to have been the loudest the neighbors ever heard, a clash of tempers. That might have been the spark that ignited the deadly chain of events. After leaving the house, Daniel was seen heading to the warehouse, a place connected to his business dealings but also rumored to be a meeting spot for Thessady's criminal elite. The question that haunted everyone was who was waiting for him there, and why the detectives found traces of multiple fingerprints on the scene, some belonging to family members, some to known criminals, and others still unidentified. This only deepened the mystery and the suspicion that this murder was not a simple act but a planned execution by those who wanted Daniel gone forever. The atmosphere around the case grew heavier as more layers of deception were uncovered. People who once spoke openly now clamored for silence. Witnesses disappeared, and all eyes turned into enemies. The pressure on the police mounted, and the city held its breath, waiting for justice, but knowing that in a world ruled by crime, justice was often the rarest of all things. Daniel Serafini's story was more than just a murder. It was a mirror reflecting the dark realities of a society where blood ties could be as deadly as any weapon and lies could cut deeper than a knife crime. Documentary will continue to unravel this tale of betrayal, greed, and the fight for power as the truth behind Daniel Serafini's murder comes to light, showing that sometimes the greatest danger lies not outside, but within the very people we call family. Daniel Serafini was far more than just a victim in this tangled web of deception and death. He was a man walking a razor's edge, surrounded by enemies disguised as family and friends, whose smiles concealed dark intentions. The police quickly realized that the surface story of a robbery or a crime of passion could not explain the layers of betrayal wrapped tightly around Daniel's life. He had long been entangled in a dangerous game where alliances were temporary and trust was a luxury few could afford. His closest allies were shadowed figures whose motives ran far deeper than money or simple revenge. These were players in a deadly chess match, where every move counted and a wrong step could mean death. Investigators pored over every detail of Daniel's recent days, searching for clues that could explain why he was targeted and who had the most to gain from his death. They discovered that Daniel had been secretly gathering evidence against a powerful crime syndicate that operated within the city, a syndicate that had deep roots even within his own bloodline. The realization sent shockwaves through the investigation, because this was no ordinary crime syndicate. This was a ruthless network that controlled illicit trade, corrupt officials, and maintained a grip on the city's underworld. Daniel's plan to expose them was bold and dangerous. He had made secret contacts in law enforcement and the media, and had been compiling files that could bring down some of the city's most feared criminals. But to do this, he had to hide his intentions from those closest to him, a task that became increasingly difficult as the web of deceit tightened around him. The detectives found encrypted messages on Daniel's phone emails that hinted at meetings with undercover agents and anonymous tips sent to journalists. These communications painted a picture of a man desperate to bring justice, but also deeply aware of the danger that shadowed his every step. The question became who among those in Daniel's inner circle was aware of his plans, and whether any of them had betrayed him. The investigation turned toward Daniel's family and business associates, who all suddenly appeared less trustworthy. The police discovered that Daniel's own sister Julia had connections that went beyond normal family ties. She had been linked to some of the syndicate's operations through financial transactions and secret meetings. While she had been seen publicly as a loyal sister, her private dealings raised red flags that could not be ignored. Meanwhile, Daniel's business partner, Marcus, was found to be involved in laundering money for the syndicate, a betrayal that cut Deep into Daniel's trust, Marcus had been feeding information to the criminals and working behind Daniel's back to undermine the entire operation. The betrayal was profound, and the motives complex. The police uncovered jealousies, rivalries, and old grudges, all of which painted a picture of a man surrounded by people who saw his downfall as their opportunity. The detectives began to understand that Daniel's murder was not a spontaneous act, but a calculated elimination designed to protect interests in silence, a threat that could unravel years of criminal enterprise. The city's underworld was watching closely, knowing that Daniel's death sent a clear message to anyone who dared to challenge the syndicate's power. But the case was far from closed. The police knew they were dealing with a sophisticated network that could cover its tracks and intimidate witnesses. Daniel's plans had been ambitious and far-reaching, and now the investigators had to navigate a labyrinth of lies, half-truths, and fears to uncover who had pulled the trigger. The pressure on the detectives was immense as they faced threats and misinformation. The deeper they dug, the more dangerous the case became, forcing them to rely on allies within the law enforcement community and to protect those willing to speak. The stakes were high, and every lead had to be followed no matter where it led. From encrypted files to shadowy meetings, the investigation was a race against time and against an enemy that seemed always one step ahead. Daniel's murder was a warning and a call to justice, a story that crime documentary would continue to tell in hopes of shedding light on a darkness that too many wanted to keep hidden. It was a reminder that in a world where trust was scarce, the only way to survive was to be smarter, braver, and more determined than those who sought to destroy you. The deeper the investigation into Daniel Serafini's murder went, the more it became clear that the truth was buried under layers of lies, deceit, and betrayal that ran deeper than anyone had imagined. The police uncovered a shocking revelation about Daniel's sister Julia, a woman who had always appeared to be a devoted family member, but who harbored secrets that connected her directly to the criminal syndicate Daniel had been fighting against. The initial suspicion around Julia was sparked by inconsistencies in her statements and the discovery of unexplained financial transactions that linked her to known members of the syndicate. As detectives peeled back the layers of her life, they found evidence of meetings that had been carefully concealed and communication that was deliberately erased but could not be fully destroyed. Julia's alibi for the night of Daniel's murder began to unravel under the intense scrutiny of the investigators. It was revealed that she had lied about her whereabouts, giving a fabricated story that was quickly contradicted by surveillance footage and witness testimonies. Her involvement in the murder plot became more than a possibility, it became a chilling reality. The investigation also shone a harsh light on Daniel's business partner Marcus, a man who had presented himself as loyal and trustworthy, but who was now exposed as a key player in the syndicate's operations. Marcus was discovered to be deeply involved in laundering money and facilitating illegal transactions that kept the syndicate's engine running smoothly. His betrayal was a blow to the investigation, but also a crucial lead in uncovering the wider network of crime that surrounded Daniel's life. The detectives found that Marcus had been secretly feeding information to the syndicate, undermining Daniel's efforts and protecting those who wanted him silenced. The betrayal extended beyond just the two of them, with more members of the Serafini circle showing signs of duplicity. The family ties that were supposed to be bonds of trust were instead chains of deceit that trapped those who dared to seek the truth. Every conversation was laced with lies, and every gesture hid a knife waiting to strike. Web of lies grew denser and more suffocating as the investigation progressed. It revealed a world where greed and power overshadowed loyalty, and where the pursuit of wealth justified any crime, even murder. The police were forced to navigate this dangerous terrain carefully, knowing that any misstep could lead to the case collapsing or worse, putting witnesses and officers in danger. The involvement of Julia and Marcus transformed the investigation into a high-stakes battle for justice, as they were not just suspects, but representatives of a larger corrupt system. Daniel's murder was a symptom of a much bigger disease, one that infected the city's elite and criminal underworld alike. The detectives worked tirelessly to connect the dots between the syndicate's activities and the personal vendettas that fueled the violence. They uncovered layers of corruption that reached into businesses, politics, and law enforcement, making the pursuit of truth a perilous journey. The community watched anxiously as the investigation unfolded, knowing that the outcome would change the course of many lives. Julia and Marcus became the focus of intense interrogation, their carefully crafted facades cracking under the weight of evidence and pressure. Their stories began to diverge as they tried to shift blame and protect their own interests, but the truth was relentless, and inch by inch it emerged from the shadows. The revelation of their roles was a turning point in the case, signaling that the murder was not just a crime of passion, but a cold, calculated conspiracy to maintain power and control over the Serafini legacy. The detectives understood that bringing Julia and Marcus to justice was critical to dismantling the syndicate and exposing the full extent of the criminal empire that had ensnared Daniel. From the ashes of betrayal, a glimmer of hope emerged that justice might prevail in a world darkened by greed and deception. Crime documentary continues to follow this harrowing tale, revealing how family ties can become deadly traps and how lies once told can lead to destruction and redemption alike. In the tangled web of deceit and betrayal that had consumed the city and shattered the Serafini family, the final truth about Daniel Serafini's murder was about to be uncovered. What began as a mysterious killing in a deserted warehouse had evolved into a shocking revelation that no one had seen coming. The investigation had exposed layers of lies, greed, and desperation, but the most devastating truth was yet to be revealed. Julia Serafini, Daniel's sister and the woman who had appeared the closest to him, was found to be at the very center of the conspiracy. From the start, her story had been inconsistent and her alibi shaky, but it was only with the relentless work of the detectives and the breakthrough discovery of Daniel's encrypted messages that the full extent of her betrayal came to light. The encrypted messages hidden in Daniel's phone and computer contained damning evidence of Julia's involvement in the murder plot. These messages revealed secret communications between her and members of the crime syndicate plotting to eliminate Daniel and secure the family fortune for herself. The detectives painstakingly decoded the messages, unveiling a cold, calculated plan driven by jealousy and desperation. Julia had long resented Daniel's success and the control he held over the family business. She saw his determination to expose the syndicate as a threat to her own ambitions and a barrier to her inheritance. The evidence showed that Julia had secretly met with the syndicate's leaders to arrange the murder, convincing them that Daniel's death was necessary to protect their interests and hers. In exchange, she promised access to the family wealth and insider information that would strengthen their grip on the city's criminal underworld. The plan was executed with chilling precision. The night of the murder, Julia had lured Daniel to the warehouse under the pretense of discussing a new business opportunity, a meeting that would become a trap. Daniel walked into the ambush unaware of the betrayal waiting for him. His trust in his sister made the final blow all the more devastating. The arrest of Julia sent shockwaves through the Serafini family and the city itself. The woman who had once been seen as a pillar of the family was now the mastermind behind a brutal murder. The icy facade she had maintained shattered as the weight of her crimes became undeniable. Facing the truth, Julia's demeanor shifted from denial to desperation and finally resignation. She knew the evidence against her was overwhelming, and the life she had planned was now beyond reach. The trial was a spectacle drawing intense media attention and public fascination. People struggled to comprehend how family ties could lead to such deadly consequences. The prosecution laid out the case methodically, revealing the conspiracy, the greed, the lies, and the callous murder that had rocked the city. Julia's defense faltered under the mountain of evidence and witness testimonies, sealing her fate. The story of Daniel Serafini's murder became more than just a crime. It became a cautionary tale about trust, betrayal, and the dark side of ambition. It exposed how jealousy and greed could turn loved ones into enemies, and how the pursuit of power could destroy everything in its path. In the aftermath of the case, the Serafini family was left fractured and scarred, their name forever associated with tragedy and treachery. But justice had been served, and a message had been sent to the criminal syndicate that no one was untouchable, and that even the most carefully hidden lies would eventually come to light. Crime documentary continues to follow the ripple effects of this shocking case, reminding us that sometimes the greatest dangers come from within, and that blood ties can bind as tightly as they can break.